Hey, Wilson here with yet another video. I did Chuck Berry last night. I'm doing Bob Marley and the Wailers today. This is my first reggae video, as indeed it should be, right? Bob Marley is usually the gateway, the introduction that most people have to reggae. I was one of those guys in the 80s, one of those fraternity guys, one of those frat boys who listened to a lot of reggae before I realized that was a cliche. You know, we all had our copy of Legend and we'd blast that at parties and whatever. But I, of course, took it farther, as you can expect I would. And I had almost, I did not have the entire Bob Marley discography at that time, but I had at least half of it. All right, so now I've got everything, but as usual with an artist who has a discography of this size, I could not find one today. I could not find the 1971 Leslie Kong Best of the Wailers, so I'm going to show you what it looks like on my computer. I think I've got everything else though. All right, so, okay, let's start. Bob Marley's first album was the Wailin' Wailers with, Peter Tosh and Bunny Wailer, Bunny Livingston, whatever. This is the original cover from the 1965 album. It has been re-released, subsequently in the 70s and all the way, who knows when they stopped re-releasing this album on CD and on LP, and it had overdubs or remixes or something like that. So I patiently waited for this to come out a few years back, and it's the original 1965 mix. It's a good album. I mean, it wasn't really reggae at the time. Let's see what's on. He does an early version of Put It On, I Need You, Lonesome Feeling, What's New Pussycat? Yeah, the Burt Bacharach number. One Love, he had that song as far back as the year I was born. When the Well Runs Dry, 10 Commandments of Love, the 1950s doo-wop song. Rude Boy is a good one. Hurts to Be Alone, Love or Affection, it's I'm Still Waiting, and Simmer Down. So he had some of his most famous numbers at this early stage in his career. It's a pretty good record. Now this is not made as an album, this was a collection of previously released 45s, I think, and there may have been something new on here. As I was saying in the Chuck Berry video last night, at the time that was, well, not in 1965, but in the 50s it was common for people to release albums which were mostly previously released 45s. So this is no different. He did not do another album for the rest of the 1960s. Now, this might be a good time to show you volume 1 of this, what they call these, the Complete Wailers, 1967 to 1972. There were a lot of these. I only bought this one. I was disappointed that it did not contain everything. In fact, talking about that Best of the Wailers, that's on here mostly, but not all the songs. They did not release all the songs. It says here, for legal reasons, and then they list a bunch of songs which could not be released. So if you think, even though it says the Complete Wailers, it's not complete. But this series was highly regarded. This is 3 discs, and there were many more. I just didn't continue to purchase these. I would still like to have everything that Bob Marley ever officially released, but that's a lot of 45s and whatnot, A-sides, B-sides. So, as always with these shows, I'm just going to concentrate on the albums, all right? The albums, folks. Okay, in the early 70s, he worked with my man Lee Perry. I have that material in various ways. I have the Complete Upsetter collection, which I believe is complete. He did 3 albums with Lee Perry, the Wailers did, which I'll get into in a second. This is 6 CDs. So I got that. I have this Trenchtown Rock 4 CD set, which I don't know if it's all Lee Perry stuff. No, it just says late 60s and early 70s, but it does have the complete African Herbsman album, which I love on here, so I didn't have to buy that individual CD. And as long as I'm on the subject of the Upsetter, here's a cool little, this is 10 discs of Lee Perry productions, right? So, you know, he was like the Jamaican Phil Spector or something. So anyways, back to Bob Marley. Okay, so actually, you know what? Since this does not reproduce the album covers, I may as well show you what they look like. The first one is called, get it up close there, Soul Rebels. It's a really good album, certainly better than the Wailing Wailers. Soul Rebels, one of his greatest songs, I think. Try Me, It's All Right, No Sympathy, which of course, you know, Peter Tosh would later sing. He sings it here too. My Cup, Soul Almighty, Rebels Hop, that's Curtis Mayfield, Norman Whitfield, Barrett Strong song, and which Marley added to. Cornerstone, 400 Years, which the Wailers would later re-record too. The Wailers, once they made it to Island, would re-record a lot of this material. And whether you think those are the definitive versions or the earlier ones are the best is entirely up to you. It's like Sinatra would do the same thing. You know, he would. It's hard to pick what the definitive versions of certain Sinatra songs are because he would do them multiple times in his career. No Water, Reaction, and My Sympathy. My Sympathy is just a dub version of 400 Years, I think. So, anyways, that is 1970. It is Soul Rebels. Here is Soul Revolution Part 2, which is the second album that the Wailers did with Lee Perry. Also good. All these albums are good. Keep On Moving. He would re-record that. Don't Rock My Boat. It was on Kaya, I think. But they called it Satisfy My Soul. Put It On. He definitely re-recorded that. Fussin' and Fighting. Duppy Conqueror. Memphis. Riding High. Kaya, which of course that was on the album. African Herbsman, that's a Richie Havens number, by the way. Stand Alone, Sun is Shining, he redid that one. And Brainwashing, which is great. So that's a cool album too, Soul Revolution Part 2. And then there was the Soul Revolution Part 2 dub album, which is, you know, those songs in dub versions. As far as I can tell, they're all on here. All right. So this is excellent material that the Wailers recorded with the Upsetter in the early 70s. Now, at this time, I may as well, because the dub version, when did that come out? 71, 72, I can't remember. In also 71 was Best of the Wailers, which I could not find today. So I'm gonna this will be one of the last ones I'll be showing you on my computer. There it is. It's called Best of the Wailers. They did the album with Leslie Kong, but it's not a compilation. It's an album of new material. It's good. Really quickly, Soul Shakedown Party, that's great. Stop the Train, Peter Tosh, right? He did that one. Caution, Soul Captives, a version of the traditional Go Tell It on the Mountain song. Can't You See and Soon Come are both Peter Tosh numbers. Cheer Up, Back Out, and Do It Twice. They were not happy with the album. I'm not even sure if they wanted it released, but you know, I like it. And after that, tell you what, before I get into the Island stuff, I might as well just quickly show you, because I do really like the album. I may as well just show you what African Herbsman looks like. African Herbsman came out in 1973. All right, it's another classic Marley album. It's a compilation, but listen to this: Lively Up Yourself, Small Axe, Duppy Conqueror, Trenchtown Rock, African Herbsman, Keep On Moving, Fussin' and Fightin', Stand Alone. That's just side one. 8 songs on side one. Side 2, All in One, which is, it's a medley of different stuff. Don't Rock the Boat, Put It On, Sun is Shining, Kaya, Riding High, Brainwashing, and 400 Years. Some of those tracks, if you've been paying attention, are already on previous albums. But African Earthman was the first album I heard of any of that Lee Perry stuff. So I like it. I don't think I need anything else. I'm going to close my computer. Okay. Here's the easiest way to own all the island material. All right, these are Bob Marley's most famous albums, so I will use this when I need to, but I have these albums, you know, multiple times. So here's the original, well, it's only half of the original, the Zippo lighter cover of Catch a Fire. This is still, to this day, one of the greatest albums that he ever made. Concrete Jungle, Stir It Up, High Tide or Low Tide, Stop That Train, 400 Years, Baby We Got a Good, Baby We've Got a Date, Rocket Baby, Midnight Ravers, All Day All Night, Slave Driver, Kinky Reggae, and No More Trouble. Now, if you're paying attention again, a good deal of those songs were already recorded by him in previous eras. So these are all re-recordings. Again, whether you think that they're done in their definitive versions here or earlier is up to every Bob Marley fan to decide. Sometimes I like them better on Island. Sometimes I like the originals better. There's a certain joie de vivre about the original versions of those songs, which is kind of lost in the overly slick production of the Island recordings. But the Island recordings were the first, you know, albums of Bob Marley's I ever heard, so I am partial to them. Here's a Mobile Fidelity version of Catch a Fire. This is the more classically used LP cover. I don't know why the Zippo lighter thing, they didn't like that, but Bob Marley smoking a joint, that's what you want, I guess, you know. But it sounds wonderful regardless. All right, so that is, what, 73? It's a classic. Another classic is Burnin'. Here's the deluxe edition of Burnin'. Oh, you know what? I should have told you. Catch a Fire, the second disc has the, well, the second disc is the release version. The first disc is the unreleased original Jamaican versions. All right, so if you're interested in that, get the deluxe. Okay, so this is Burnin', which I don't really think I don't know if I like that better or worse than Catch a Fire. They're both classics to my ears. The first album is remastered. The first disc, the album is remastered. You get bonus tracks, and then you get a live show from '73 on disc 2. But this is another great album. I mean, listen to these songs. Get Up, Stand Up. Well, that's one of their all-time classics. Hallelujah Time. I Shot the Sheriff, which Clapton would bring to #1 on the U.S. charts. Burnin' and Lootin' is great. Put It On, Small Axe, Pass It On, Duppy Conqueror, One Foundation, and Rastaman Chant. Again, half the album, I think, was recorded before. It appeared here in, you know, like different versions, but this is another. Both of these are '73, this and Catch a Fire. So Bob Marley announced himself on the international stage in a big way in 1973, the year after the Harder They Come soundtrack, another essential reggae album that you need to have in your 70s collection. Okay. Next we have one of my favorites. I say one of my favorites because all of these albums are my favorites, but this album, Natty Dread, doesn't seem to get the acclaim that Catch a Fire and Burnin' do, but to me, it's every bit as good. This is just a standard, you know, Island remasters, you know. Okay, so we got Lively Up Yourself, No Woman, No Cry. That's not one that he had recorded earlier that I can remember anyway. Them Belly Full, But We Hungry. Rebel Music, which is 7 o'clock Roadblock. So Jase, Natty Dread, Bend Down Low, Talkin' Blues, Revolution, and then there's a bonus track. To me, these are all 5-star albums. So far, the first 3 Wailers albums are classics, you know. I don't know if they ever made a big deluxe version of this. If they did, I don't have it. Okay, I have the standard old CD, I don't think it's even remastered, of the live album. This was a classic live album. Used to be anyway. I mean, now I don't know whether this album is considered any better than Babylon by Bus or not. Babylon by Bus was a double LP, but this is certainly the first one I ever heard. Listen to these songs, they're all just, they're home runs, all of them. Trenchtown Rock, Burnin' and Lootin', Them Belly Full But We Hungry, Lively Up Yourself, No Woman No Cry, the classic version of No Woman No Cry, the one that's on Legend. I Shot the Sheriff, and Get Up, Stand Up. It's like a perfect Bob Marley show, even though it's short, right? I'm sure he played more songs than this that night. So, everything so far, classic on the island recordings. Here is a double disc, the deluxe edition of Rastaman Vibration, just narrowly lesser than the first three, but it's another virtual classic. 76, the year that this came out, was a big year for reggae. You had a lot of classic reggae albums, and people, I do sometimes hear people say, this is the best Bob Marley album. I think David Lee Roth, when I read his book, said this was the best Wailers album. So what we got here? Positive Vibration, Roots Rock Reggae, which the Clash quoted. Johnny Was, Cry to Me, Want More, Crazy Bald Head, Who the Cap Fit. This is a good record, actually. Night Shift, War, the classic War, and Rat Race. Then you have additional tracks, and then you have a live disc after that. I mean, it's, you know, if it's a lesser album than Catch a Fire, Burning, and Night Dread, it's just barely, just a hair's difference. I probably should just say it's another classic. One thing I'm going to say, though, 1977's Exodus is for sure a classic. Now, this one, I don't remember. At the end of the 20th century, was it Time magazine? Some publication said this was the greatest album of the 20th century. I don't remember now. It's got probably more songs that are on Legend than any other one. I shouldn't make that claim, though, until I've looked. What we got here? Natural Mystic, So Much Things to Say, Guiltiness, The Heathen, and now the real classics begin. Exodus, Jamming, Waiting in Vain, Turn Your Lights Down Low, Three Little Birds, and One Love / People Get Ready. It's that ending suite of songs that make this so good. Then there's bonus tracks, and then more live stuff on disc 2. Exodus, that's a 5-star. I mean, you talk about the truly great albums of 1977, and there were a lot. 77 was like the 70s equivalent of 67. Exodus should be on here. And here's the Mobile Fidelity version. Nothing bonus. Nope, just the album. All right. Bob Marley and the Wailers. Here's Kaya, which is a more sedate affair. It's another great album. I don't know if it's a classic, but you know, any Bob Marley album from this era is definitely worth your time. Kaya, Is This Love, Sun Is Shining, Satisfy My Soul. Those are all classic songs. She's Gone, Misty Morning, Crisis, Running Away, Time Will Tell. And then there's a bonus track. So, you know, you wouldn't want to be without it. Okay, I think I need now to go to the box set, which I have avoided using thus far. It's just a little thing. It's got a booklet. You get all the remastered CDs. I'm gonna skip up to here we go. Babylon by Bus. Or Babylon, by Bus. Got the title right. All right, this was a really cool album in the late 70s, you know, coming right off the end of Kaya, you know, when that was a popular album. It probably has a better song selection. I cannot read this, you know, than the live one from 75. But I must admit, in my life, I think I've played the 75 album more, you know, than I played this one. We have Survival in 79, Probably of the classic, island albums, this is probably the least known, I think, of his record. It's his most overtly political album. I don't know if there's any classics on here. Top Rankin', Ambush in the Night, Africa Unite, Babylon System, Zimbabwe, One Drop, Wake Up and Live, So Much Trouble. That's a good one. I don't think any of those songs made Legend, did it? Making this the only album? Maybe it's been such a long time since I played Legend. Oh well, I'll get to that in a second. But that kind of makes me recommend Survival. It's Bob at his most fiery, his most dedicated, his most political. I like Survival, but I can see how it's overshadowed by the other ones. All right, Uprising, 1980, the last it's the last album he would ever release. Here's a regular CD of Uprising. This is another great one. Coming from the Cold is great. Real Situation, Bad Card, We and Them, Work, Zion Train, Pimpus Paradise, Could You Be Loved, River Loving Jah, and Redemption Song. So there's 3 or 4 great ones on there, and the rest of the album's pretty good. He died after that. Was it 81? I think he was playing soccer, stubbed his toe, got a cut, something like that. It got infected. He didn't want to get it looked at, or he did have it looked at, but he didn't want to have an operation or something, blood transfusion. I don't remember what it was now, but it went against his religion, and he died. After he died, Confrontation came out. This is in 83. This is another one that, this is when he started to get really popular. Around this time, and then Legend came out the next year. I really can't read this. Oh well, I know that Buffalo Soldier, I think, is on here, but this was a popular album in the early 80s. But much like 10 years earlier, when the Beach Boys released their classic Endless Summer double disc compilation, Bob Marley, his people, released Legend, and everybody had this. This was more popular than, this is the double disc version. This was more popular than any single Bob Marley album. Listen to this. This is Legend remastered. Is This Love? No Woman, No Cry, the live version. Could You Be Loved? 3 Little Birds, Buffalo Soldier, Get Up, Stand Up, Stir It Up, Easy Skankin'. That's a bonus track on here. It wasn't on the original album. One Love, People Get Ready, I Shot the Sheriff, Waiting in Vain, Redemption Song, Satisfy My Soul, Exodus, Jamming, and then there's another bonus track, Punky Reggae Party, which came out during the punk era in the I think 77, 78, and it was a hit in England. And then you get a bunch of remixes on disc 2. This is probably the ultimate way to hear this album. But if you have all of the albums I've just shown you, I don't know as you really need this, but it was a perfect primer for me and a million other people in the 80s when we didn't have all the Bob Marley albums. All right. Here is a standard 4-disc set, which came out in the early 90s. I think 92, the year I got married, Songs of Freedom. I'm always talking about the 90s and their 4-disc box sets. I usually name Rhino. Rhino had nothing to do with this one. This is Tough Gong, of course, limited edition. See the number at the bottom here. This will do you if you want a more thorough examination of his career other than, Legend. This goes before the Island Years. But if you have this, plus you've got Trenchtown Rock, really examining that late 60s, early 70s stuff, that does Bob Marley's career well in 2 box sets. What else can I show you from Bob? I was a Peter Tosh fan too. Here's the standard. This is 3 discs. Yeah, 3 discs of covering Peter Tosh's career. You get singles, good singles too, on disc 1. You get hits and classic album cuts on the last disc, and the second disc is all live. So it takes a bit of a different approach than Songs of Freedom. And Peter Tosh, there's a whole cult around Peter Tosh too. I mean, it's too bad I don't have more of his albums, but I did bring you my 2 favorites. I played the most in the 80s anyway. Legalize It, which is a classic in its own right. Played this almost as much as I did a good Bob Marley album. Legalize It, Burial's great. What You're Gonna Do is great. No Sympathy, the old Wailers song. Why Must I Cry? Let Jah Be Praised. Catchy Shuby. I think I've heard other people sing that too. Till Your Well Runs Dry. Brand New Second Hand. That's one that the Wailers did too, right? And equally good, if not better, is Equal Rights. He does his version of Get Up, Stand Up. Down Pressure Man's is a classic Thai song. I Am That I Am. Step and Razor's great. Equal Rights itself. African, that's a great one too. Ja Guide, Apartheid, these are bonus tracks. Pick Myself Up Live and African Live. This is, yeah, these are wonderful. I really should have more here, Tosh. And I have one Buddy Wailer album on CD that I couldn't find today. I wasn't going to rack my brain for it. So, what are we at? 25 minutes? Bob Marley, as I was alluding to in the opening parts of this video, he is most Western, people's entranceway into reggae. I listened to a lot of reggae in the 80s, but I didn't buy, almost or nearly the whole discography of any other artist or band other than Bob Marley. I just would say, oh, I would hear, this is supposed to be a great reggae album, and I bought it. But, Bob Marley is, I don't know, he's like the Elvis Presley of reggae, the Bob Dylan of reggae, the Elvis and Dylan combined. So, yeah, I was long overdue for a reggae video, and I'm glad that Marley was my first. All right, Wilson signing off.